Community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor, president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Ms. Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of Mrs. Theodis Mons Mercer of DeSoto, Georgia. The family of Mr. John William Mathis of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Walter Bubba Ross of Cordele, Georgia. The family of retired educator Mrs. Verdine Daniels Alexander of Atlanta, Georgia, and Vienna, Georgia. The family of Mother Essie May Toots, age 90, of Americus, Georgia. The family of Deacon Wilma Lorenza Foster of Vienna, Georgia. Would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mrs. Theodis Mons Mercer of 296 DeSoto Seed Farm Road, DeSoto, Georgia, died Monday, August 24, at her residence in DeSoto, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Theodis Mons Mercer was held Sunday, August 30th, at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Porter Court in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Eugene Hall, pastor of the Jackson Grove Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Sonia Scenario, and her husband, Mr. Gene Scenario of Leslie, Georgia, Miss Marcy Walker, and her husband, Mr. Artis Walker of DeSoto, Georgia, Mr. Jesse Mercer, Jr. of Americus, Georgia, and Minister Shawanda Mercer of DeSoto, Georgia. Her beloved grandchildren, Michael, Demetrius, Jasmine, Quenisha, Gentry, Janaya, Diamond, Jury, and Justice. 4 beloved great-grandchildren, her loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Corrine Melton, and her husband, Mr. Ronnie Melton of Leesburg, Georgia, Mrs. Thelma McGarrah, and Mrs. Doris Christmas, both of Atlanta, Georgia, Mrs. Annie Ruth Williams of Americus, Georgia, her beloved brothers, Mr. Bobby Mons and Mr. Hollis Mons, both of Americus, Georgia, her beloved in-law, Elder Lonnie Mercer, Senior of DeSoto, Georgia, Mrs. Nettie Dunnings of Jonesburg, Georgia, Mr. Bobby Mercer of Michigan, Mrs. Pearlie Paul and Mrs. Clara Daniel Mercer, both of Leslie, Georgia. Mrs. Sarah Cobb Mercer of Americus, Georgia, and Miss Yvonne Mons of Smithfield, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends to include Mrs. Annie Clark, Mrs. Cora Walton, and Miss Pauline survived. Mrs. Theotis Mons Mercer of 296 DeSoto Seed Farm Road, DeSoto, Georgia. Mr. John William Mathis Jr. of 713 East 27th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, August 25th at the Taylor Regional Hospital in Hawkinsville, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. John William Mathis Jr. was held Sunday, August 30th, graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Dr. K.M. Williams, pastor of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Evelyn Hicks Mathis of Unadilla, Georgia, his loving and devoted children, Mr. John William Mathis II, Miss Valerie Mathis, and Mr. Travis Mathis, all of Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Anthony Mathis and Miss Charlotte Mathis, both of Unadilla, Georgia, Miss Charlene Mathis of Valdosta, Georgia, 7 beloved grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren, a loving and devoted sister, Mrs. Juanita Mathis Talbert of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved brothers, Mr. Curtis Smith of West Palm Beach, Florida, Mr. Eddie Mathis of Vienna, Georgia, and Mr. Tommy Mathis of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved sisters-in-law, Mrs. Shirley Mathis of Vienna, Georgia, Miss Cynthia Smith of West Palm Beach, Florida, and Mrs. Willie Mae Hicks of Boston, Massachusetts. His brothers-in-law, Mr. Johnny Talbert of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Lester Hicks of Warner Robins, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survived Mr. John William Mathis Jr. of 713 East 27th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Walter Bubba Ross of 1110 South Joe Wright Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, August 27th at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Walter Bubba Ross was held Monday, August 31st, graveside at the Westview Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Johnny Dean, pastor of the New Poplar Spring Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted companion, Ms. Dorothy Paul of Cordele, Georgia, his beloved and devoted son, Mr. Frederick Paul, and his wife, Mrs. Tammy Paul, Mr. Travis Ross and his wife, Mrs. Tabitha Ross, both of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and devoted grandchildren, Miss Latasha Harris of Valdosta, Georgia, Miss Destiny Brown of Ashburn, Georgia, Miss Brittany Brown, Miss Raven Paul, Miss Kalia Paul, all of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Annika Paul of Savannah, Georgia, 7 beloved great-grandchildren, his beloved brothers, Mr. Charlie Ross and his wife, Mrs. Annie Ross of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Johnny Ross and his wife, Mrs. Miriam Ross, of Milton, Connecticut. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends, to include his close friend, Chief Augusta Telfair, and Mr. Charles Wales, survived. Mr. Walter Bubba Ross of 1110 South Joe Wright Drive, Cordele, Georgia. Retired educator, Mrs. Verdine Daniels Alexander of 4100 Jeffrey Drive, Atlanta, Georgia, died Thursday, August 27th at Reliable Health and Rehab at Lakewood in Atlanta, Georgia. The funeral service for retired educator Mrs. Verdine Daniels Alexander was held Monday, August 31st, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Bishop Sammy Haynes, pastor of the Vienna Temple of Faith, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted son, Mr. Raphael Williams of Riverdale, Georgia, Mr. Aaron Alexander, and Mr. Makai Alexander and his wife, Mrs. Davida Alexander, both of Atlanta, Georgia. 8 beloved grandchildren, 10 great-grandchildren, a loving and devoted sister, Mrs. Carol Daniels Carter of Atlanta, Georgia. Her beloved nephew, Mr. Eddie Bernard Carter, Mr. Bandit Carter and his wife, Mrs. Aletha Carter, and Mr. Jason B. Carter, all of Atlanta, Georgia. Her special cousins, Ms. Earlene Tuff, Mr. A.J. Quarterman, and Mr. J.B. Patterson, a host of other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survived. Retired educator, Mrs. Verdine Daniels Alexander of 4100 Jeffrey Drive, Atlanta, Georgia. Beloved church mother, Mother Essie Mae Toots, age 90, of 120 Andrews Drive, Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, August 29th, 2020, at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for beloved church mother, Mother Essie Mae Toots, age 90, was held Friday, September 4th, on the grounds of her beloved Shady Grove Baptist Church, Old Shady Grove Baptist Church in Americus, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Jesse Watts, officiated. The burial followed at the Eastview Cemetery in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Reverend Eugene Toots and his wife, Mrs. Kathy Toots, Mr. Bobby Toots, Mr. Raymond Toots and his wife, Mrs. Patricia Toots, Mr. Edward Toots, and Mrs. Vanessa Toots, all of Americus, Georgia. A host of grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, a devoted and beloved brother, Deacon David Lee Davis and his wife, Mrs. Patricia Davis of Americus, Georgia. 2 beloved goddaughters, Mrs. Helen Perry and her husband, Deacon George Perry, and Miss Bertha Floyd, both of Americus, Georgia. A host of other relatives and many sorrowing friends survived. Beloved church mother, Mother Essie Mae Toots, age 90, of 120 Andrews Drive, Americus, Georgia. Deacon Wilma Lorenza Foster of 301 South Azalea Circle, Vienna, Georgia, died Saturday, August 29th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The public visitation for Deacon Wilma Lorenzo Foster was held Wednesday, September 2nd at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The committal and burial service was held Saturday, September 5th at Damien Memorial Park in Damien, Florida. Survivors include his beloved daughter, Ms. Deborah Finn of St. Petersburg, Florida, two beloved grandchildren, Mr. Dwight Harrington and Miss Ashley Harrington, both of St. Petersburg, Florida, two great-grandchildren, his beloved sisters, Miss Lola Mae Foster of Alabama, Miss Peggy Ann Good of Winter Haven, Florida, his beloved brother, Mr. S.M. Foster, and his wife, Mrs. Mary Foster of Anniston, Alabama, and Mr. Joe Hurt Foster and his wife, Mrs. Sammy Lois Foster of Alabama, a host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survived Deacon Wilma Lorenza Foster of 301 South Azalea Circle, Vienna, Georgia. Again, the family of Mrs. Theartis Mons Mercer of DeSoto, Georgia, the family of Mr. John William Mathis of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Walter Bubba Ross of Cordele, Georgia, the family of retired educator Mrs. Verdine Daniels Alexander of Atlanta, Georgia, and Vienna, Georgia, the family of beloved church mother, Mother Essie Mae Toots, age 90, of Americus, Georgia, the family of Deacon Wilma Lorenza Foster of Vienna, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during the hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Dr. Linda Mae Daly Johnson of 405 Trotman Avenue, Fort Valley, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 1st at the Pine Point Hospice in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include a loving and devoted son, Mr. Clarence Johnson III of Fort Valley, Georgia. Two beloved sisters, Mrs. Dolores Harris and her husband, Mr. Terry Harris of Chicago, Illinois. Ms. Maggie Crawford and her husband, Mr. Dale Crawford of Cleveland, Mississippi. Four beloved brothers, Mr. Morris Daly Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Juanita Daly of Jonesboro, Georgia. Mr. Joseph Daly of Fort Valley, Georgia, Mr. Benny Daly and his wife, Mrs. Martha Daly of Brentwood, Tennessee, and Mr. John Daly and his wife, Mrs. Linda Daly of Duluth, Georgia. A beloved brother-in-law, Mr. Charlie Byram Sr. of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A host of loving nieces, nephews, other relatives, former students, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include a very dear friend, Dr. Jacqueline C. James of Fort Valley, Georgia, survived. Dr. Linda May Daly Johnson of 405 Trotman Avenue, Fort Valley, Georgia. The private funeral service for Dr. Linda May Daly Johnson will be held Wednesday, September 9th, graveside at the Willow Lake Memorial Gardens in Fort Valley, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend Morris Hilsman, pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church of Fort Valley, Georgia, will officiate. The public walk-up viewing will be Tuesday, September 8th from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mrs. Sybil Dick Patterson of 524 Hancock Drive, Americus, Georgia, died Friday, August 28th at her residence in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted sister, Miss Phyllis Virginia Stapleton of London, England. A beloved niece and nephew, Mr. Era A. Stapleton and Miss Roxanne Stapleton, both of London, England. Her beloved extended family, the Reverend Norris Harris and the Harris family of Americus, Georgia. Her close friends, the Reverend Mathis and Minister Linda Wright of Cobb, Georgia. Mr. Christopher Davis and family, Mr. Eugene and Miss Charmaine Edge, Mr. Marvin Harris and family, Mr. Craig Walker and family, Miss Cynthia Walker, and the Harris family, all of Americus, Georgia, survived. Miss Sybil Dick Patterson of 524 Hancock Drive, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Sybil Dick Patterson will be held Thursday, September 10th at 11 a.m. graveside at the Sue Walker Cemetery in Cobb, Georgia. The Reverend Jermaine Harris, pastor of the Allen Chapel AME Church in Americus, Georgia, will officiate. The public walk-up viewing will be Wednesday, September 9th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mrs. Bunny May Shorter Porter of 902 Pateville Heights Circle, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, September 3rd at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mr. Wendell Dwight Shorter and his wife, Mrs. Cynthia Shorter of Homestead, Florida, and Mr. Alvin Keith Shorter and his wife, Mrs. Brenda Shorter of Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Ophia Porter, Miss Latasha Porter, Mr. McQuace Porter, Mr. Warner Porter, Miss Monica Porter, Mr. Brenton Porter, and Mr. Randolph Porter Jr., all of Cordele, Georgia. 15 beloved grandchildren, 19 beloved great-grandchildren, her beloved and devoted sisters, Mrs. Joanne Kerr and her husband, Mr. Charles Kerr, Miss Martha Ann Jackson, Mrs. Brenda Edwards and her husband, Mr. Walter Edwards, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mrs. Donna Faye Kears of Cocoa, Florida, her beloved brothers, Mr. John Jackson Jr., Mr. Kenneth Bernard Jackson, and Mr. Carl Anthony Jackson and his wife, Mrs. Lula Jackson, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. William Thomas Jackson and his wife, Mrs. Donna Jackson of New Orleans, Louisiana. Her loving aunt, Mother Grace Adams Patrick of Cordele, Georgia. A beloved uncle, Mr. Johnny Shorter Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. A host of nieces, nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends, to include Miss Lisa Rain and Sister Tuma, both of Cordele, Georgia, survive. Mrs. Bonnie Mae Shorter Porter of 902 Pateville Heights, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Bonnie Mae Shorter Porter will be held Saturday, September 12th at 10 a.m. graveside at the Westview Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, Overseer Annie Reynolds, pastor of the New Birth Tabernacle in Vienna, Georgia, will officiate. The public walk-up visitation for Mrs. Bonnie Mae Shorter Porter will be held Friday, September 11th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charlie Smith Sr. of 712 West 22nd Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 1st at Regency Hospital in Cordele, in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include his beloved and caring children, Mr. Gerald Smith of Daytona Beach, Florida, Miss Tangela Young of DeLand, Florida, Mr. Charlie Smith Jr. of Daytona Beach, Florida, and Miss Alexa Smith of Jacksonville, Florida, and Miss Sonia Smith. 10 beloved grandchildren, a host of great-grandchildren, his beloved uncles, Mr. Johnny C. Daniels and Mr. Marion Smith, both of Cordele, Georgia, a host of cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charlie Smith Sr. of 712 West 22nd Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran, Mr. Charlie Smith Sr., will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors, serving Cordele and Vienna, are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning our pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And now for announcements. The New Poplar Spring Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia, invite you to Sunday morning worship at 9:45 a.m. this first Sunday in September, and Wednesday evening at 6:45 p.m. via conference call. Please dial 253-993-3761. The New Poplar Springs Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia, invite you to worship with them this first Sunday in September at 9:45 a.m. and Wednesday evenings at 6:45 p.m. via conference call. Please dial 253-993-3761. The Reverend Johnny Dean, pastor of the New Poplar Springs Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia. The Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church conference call as follows. This first Sunday in September, please note, for this first Sunday in September will be at 9 a.m. This first Sunday in September at 9 a.m. Tuesday, midday prayer conference at 12 noon. Thursday, prayer meeting and Bible study at 6 p.m. The call-in number for the conference is 229-329-7611. The call-in conference number is 229-329-7611. Again, you're invited to worship with the Greater Morris Tabernacle Baptist Church conference call this first Sunday in September at 9 a.m. Notice the time of change for this morning at 9 a.m. Or you may join the Facebook Live as well. Please dial 229-329-7611. Mother Lucille Shazer, Church Mother. Deacon Kenneth Smith, Program Chairman. Deacon Tommy Ford, Vice Chairman of Deacons. Dr. K.M. Williams, Pastor. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens and Dr. Elizabeth Maddox, along with the Chris County Democratic Party, will host a voters registration drive held on each Saturday in the month of September. The drive will be Saturday, September 12th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. The drive will be held in front of Occasion on West 24th Avenue. All persons who will be 18 years of age by November 3rd can register to vote. This year's election is one of the most important elections in our time. Please register and make sure to vote. Again, the Reverend Isaac, Again, the Reverend Isaac H. Owens and Dr. Elizabeth Maddox will host a voters registration drive to be held on each Saturday in the month of September. The drive will be held Saturday, September 12th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. This week drive will be held on West 16th Avenue. Please make that note of correction. This week drive, this coming Saturday, the drive will be held on West 16th Avenue. Any person who will be 18 years of age by November 3rd can register to vote. Any person who will be 18 years of age by November 3rd can register to vote. This year's election is one of the most important elections in our time. Please register and make sure you vote. For more information, you may contact the Reverend Isaac H. Owens or Dr. Elizabeth Maddox. Again, this week drive on Saturday, September 12th from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. will be held on West 16th Avenue. Reverend Isaac H. Owens and Dr. Elizabeth Maddox. Sister Shirley Jackson would like to thank everyone for being so kind to her during her sickness. She's at home now and recuperating nicely. May God bless each of you. Signed, Sister Shirley Jackson, and we wish for her continued success in her recovery. Friends, that conclude our announcements for this morning, and pray that you would govern yourselves accordingly. And now for dedication. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: in loving memory of Mrs. Inez Neal, who would have celebrated her birthday August 28th, dedication requested by her beloved family. In loving memory of Ms. Martha Walker, who departed this life September 6, 1986, dedication requested by the Walker family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Lily Mae Street, who departed this life September 6, 2010, dedication requested by the Patrick, Morgan, and Street family. Precious memory linger still. In loving memory of Mrs. Nettie Mosley, who departed this life September 6, 1976. Dedication requested by her beloved family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Patricia Talbot Warren, who would have celebrated her birthday on September 6th, dedication requested by her beloved children, grandchildren, her beloved parents, Mr. Johnny and Miss Juanita Talbot, her brothers, and the entire Talbot family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Gertrude Poole, who departed this life September 8, 1991, dedication requested by the Poole family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of beloved Chairman Deacon Willie Lee Paul, who departed this life September 8, 2010, dedication requested by the entire Paul family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mr. Wayne Williams, who departed this life September 10, 2001, dedication comes from his beloved mother, Mother Frances Williams, and the entire Williams family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of our beloved Miss Sherry Ann Edwards Wright, better known to all of us as Tear, who departed this life September 5th, 2010, dedication requested by her beloved daughter, Mrs. Wanda Edward Dykes of Savannah, Georgia, her brothers, Mr. Walter Edwards and Mr. Billy Wayne Edwards Sr., and all of the neighbors on 5th Avenue West here in Cordele, Georgia, and all of the members of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church, her pastor, Dr. K.M. Williams, Deacon Tommy Ford, and Mother Lucille Shazer. We all pause and remember our beloved Miss Sherry Ann Edwards Wright, better known as Tear, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory, Mr. Walter Butts, who departed this life September 11, 1992. Dedication requested by the Butts and Leonard family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of our beloved